Friends, listen now to the word of the Lord. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to throw away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek, and a time to lose. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time for war, and a time for peace. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Timing is everything. We've all heard this before. This is a sentiment that is embedded in who we are as people and in who we are as a greater society. It's a type of understood truth that we hold internally. The encouragement to fight either our own impatience or sometimes hesitancy is met with the reminder to wait, but not too long, before acting. As a child who learned many of my life lessons from sports, I can still hear my high school soccer coach yelling out the words, "Don't stab," across the field to me. I played defense, so this warning meant that I wasn't supposed to be over-eager, even when I was tired. I was taught to track with the opposing players, sticking with them until it was the appropriate time to make a tackle. Go in too early and the player blows past you. Wait too long and they have a shot on goal. Friends, timing is everything. We use it to talk about bigger things too, the things with more weight in our lives. We use this line when we talk about changing jobs or making big transitions. Making big decisions at the right time is important to us. The problem with this claim, though, is that it makes the assumption that we have complete control over our own decisions, and that by controlling these decisions appropriately and responsibly, we are able to create a desired outcome. Wouldn't it be nice if that were always true? The passage today from Ecclesiastes is an example of poetry. The words on the page present to us like a pendulum swinging back and forth between extremes. Being born and dying, weeping and laughing, embracing and refraining from an embrace, loving and hating, silence and speaking. As we read the words the author has written, we can envision the weight of the pendulum swinging between the poles, measured and constant. mourning and dancing, seeking and losing, war and peace. Ecclesiastes 3, while heavily quoted and often recognized, is an uncomfortable text, because as much as we would like to be the hand that releases the weight into a steady rhythm, we find that often we are the weight itself. Instead of a force that propels order into the chaos, we find that we are the recipients of life in all of its fullness, bounced between joy and sorrow, light and darkness. For everything, there is a season. The book of Ecclesiastes is part of the wisdom literature. This is a book characterized by the author's emphasis on the fact that everything is fleeting or ephemeral. Life, we are reminded, is temporary. We often call the writer of Ecclesiastes a sage. And while I know that biblical authorship is always complicated, the writer, in this case the sage, reminds me of my friend, Kat. Kat was one of the first people I met when I began working at the Presbyterian Village as a chaplain intern. Having been a resident there for several years, she took great pride in showing me the ropes around the assisted living community. She explained the floor plan to me, and she taught me the best days to eat in the cafeteria. She familiarized me with the schedules and all of the bulletin boards. But she did much more for me than just these things. During my first week, Sweet Cat, with her bright red hair, sat me down and said, "If you're going to work here, you cannot be afraid to talk about death." I remember my eyes widened and she laughed at me, and then she continued on, saying, "Everyone here is familiar with death. It is a part of our everyday reality." I thought about it, and in time I realized that she was right. 26 of my parishioners passed in the short time that I served there, moving on to join the great cloud of witnesses. But Kat didn't view death as dismal. She pulled me aside once after a memorial service, and as she gave me a few pointers, she ended with this: "We have to stop calling it a celebration of life," she said. "That's not honest. What it should be called is an acknowledgement of life for all that it is." Then she patted me on the shoulder and she zoomed off in her electric wheelchair down the hallway. When Kat passed several months later, I made sure to call her service an acknowledgement of her life for all that it was. Friends, what both of the sages here encourage us to do is to name life for what it is completely. Life is made up of moments of celebration and of triumph. It is made up of moments of well-deserved recognition and of grateful surprises. But it is also made up of anguish and of grief. It is made up some days of desperation, of losses we bring upon ourselves, and of things stolen from us before we are ready. This is what it means to be human. Life happens to us in all of its fullness, no matter how carefully we navigate it. By opening ourselves to this reality, we become closer to the God who never leaves us or forsakes us. One of my 7th graders in confirmation class looked at me once and said, "I love that Jesus cried." It makes me feel like God understands me. Friends, the same God who claims us in our baptism walks this complete life with us, laughing with us, and mourning with us. As we are knocked back and forth, swinging between life's extremes, God remains present with us. For the one who spoke the world into being is the same God who welcomes us home. In every season, God holds us, whispering the reminder that each of us needs so badly to hear. I love you. You are mine. Friends, timing is everything. Amen.